Good evening. Let's get started for the next chapter. Chapter 11, Roses in the Ghetto. Chris and his son had help from many friends to convert the ground floor into a proper apartment. One friend gave them a card table, a real bed, mattress. Another person offered a set of towels and dishes. Latrell offered neck bones from a local butcher for them to cook their next meal. Other friends offered to help haul away junk and clean the place. Before long, there's fresh air and sunlight entering the apartment, and the musty smell disappeared. By this time, his son even offered to help clear the jungle, air quotes jungle, that was in the backyard. It was 3 years of neglected plants, so they tackled it later on. When Chris left their apartment to drop off his son at daycare, he was confused. After years of hauling all their belongings, his son didn't understand. Why are they, air quotes, leaving their stuff at their apartment? Chris had to explain he now has a key that secures all their belongings. They did not need to bring all of their stuff moving forward. On the way home, they walked in front of the trucker motel where they used to stay, and the air quotes workers continued offering their money for food, which they gladly accepted. He used the money to go to Marcel's restaurant for dinner. Dinner was red beans, rice with cornbread. His son was 2.5 years old and ate all the food. When the brokerage firm had a pizza party, he picked up his son from daycare and returned to the office. As he continued to make calls, he shared some of the pizza with his son. Chris continued to eye the daycare center with the word happiness misspelled with a Y. He was determined to get his son into that daycare. To that end, he enlisted the help of his son. They required all toddlers to be potty trained. So Chris started the game with his son. One hand raised means he needs to do a number 1, and one hand raised twice means he needs to do a number 2. His son loved his new air quotes job. Their day started at 7 a.m., dropping off his son at daycare, pick up his son at 6 p.m., dinner, and stop off at Joe's. Joe owned a stop that sold and repaired television sets. Chris and his son watched television shows, such as Muhammad Ali's boxing match. After dinner and television watching at Joe's, they walked home. On their way home, they went to the trucker motel where they used to live and got some money from some of the workers. A block from their home, Chris checked his pocket to make sure he still had the key to his apartment. It was a nervous hap that he started when he had a wedding ring back when he was going to propose to his first wife, Sherry. He was in a much better place, a roof over their heads, transportation, and meals. When he forgot to pay the electric bill, he lit some candles near the bathtub to distract his son from having to bathe in the dark. When his son got out of the tub and told Chris that he's a good father, he melted. Around that time, they got a photograph taken of the two of them. Back at the brokerage firm, he got ready to learn some more about being a stockbroker. Gary Abrams from the Las Vegas branch stopped by to visit, see how things are going. On the surface, he's easygoing. However, the reality is that he's super smart, built his own business from the ground up. One of the first important lessons Chris learned: don't tell the customers what to buy. Instead, ask customers what the customers wants to buy. So another thing Chris learned from Gary was the fact that Gary went door to door, knocked on homes that were in $1 million neighborhoods, rather than make cold calls from the office. Chris wanted to know how Gary was successful rather than stick with the manual that the brokerage firm gave him. Chris learned being successful didn't have anything to do with skin color. Instead, it all had to do with green, air quotes, making money, while getting to know Chris. While getting to know Chris, Gary identified Chris's strength, helped him focus on what they are. For example, the stock market went volatile. Other stockbrokers panicked. Chris stayed calm. It made sense. His life was full of ups and downs. It's volatile. Yet he remained calm. Chris learned this the hard way. When things get tough, hang in there. It's not the end of the world. That awareness made him realize when the market reopens, there's only 2 directions it can go. It can go up or it can go down. He stayed steady and was ready to reassure customers about things that weren't bogus. So from Gary, he learned if he was going to write a ticket to the customer, make sure that it is an honest ticket. Chris used Gary as a resource to not only follow, but never forget, seek him out whenever he needed information or wisdom. As Chris's paycheck increased, he looked for more social life on weekends. Around that time, he thought about his options. They hung out with Troy's K. There they got some blues music, food, catfish with rice, beans, greens, sweet potatoes, barbecued ribs, pork chops, steak with gravy, and cornbread. During the weekends in the summertime, they sat right outside their apartment. He let his son play with the other kids, but made sure his son stays nearby. Since he couldn't afford a car, he put his son into a shopping cart, walked through the neighborhood. During one of these excursions, an old couple thought Chris knew a man named Willie. Even though he didn't know the person, they welcomed Chris and their son into their home. There they had some food. Jackie, the mother of his son, did stop by, but as soon as she saw that Chris isn't budging, she left for Los Angeles. So unlike Chris, who was heartbroken each time he was separated from his own mother, his son didn't cling to his mother. Part of it could have been Chris's ambivalence toward her, or the fact that his son didn't know his mother very well. By then, Chris was making almost $2,000 a month. He could move back to San Francisco. By then, he was ready to start the next chapter of his career. He was ready. Questions, comments, constructive criticisms, asking for clarification, let me know, and I shall see you next time. Take care.